Hi, gang. Welcome to the show. Today is Yom HaShoah, I believe is the pronunciation. It is otherwise known as Holocaust Remembrance Day. So I am not going to start off the show with some silliness or craziness, anything like that, because I do believe that it is very, very important that everyone around the world remember the genocide that took place in Europe during World War II. And I'll talk about that a little bit in just a moment. But I did want to point out that, yes, I am back and the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I am Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again, and I am your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as happening to be the grand poobah of the gaminggang.com. So as I open the show today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I find it very unnerving, a little worrisome when you see so many people around the world, not just in America, but in Europe as well, who do not know what happened to the Jews of Europe during World War II. And they think, oh, a few 100,000 were massacred, if even that. I know some folks here in the United States think America and Germany teamed up to fight the Russians in World War II. I mean, that's really, really crazy. So it is important for people to actually learn a little bit of history and to understand it's not just somebody made up the phrase or made up the quote that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. It is unfortunately true. So it is very important that we do remember what happened during the Holocaust. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there today because it was very, very strange. So I was on Twitter and I saw not only is Holocaust Remembrance Day trending, but Billy Mitchell is trending. And I thought, Billy Mitchell, and of course, this is me, history guy. I'm thinking, what's going on? I don't understand. Billy Mitchell is, United Air, well, it was the U.S. Army Air Corps. I'm thinking, that Billy Mitchell. And here it turns out it's some guy who had the high score for Donkey Kong being stripped of his high scores. And I'm like, seriously? Really? That's the most important thing people are tweeting about today? Man, people have their priorities way effed up. So anyway, all right, enough of that. I'm not going to be all serious today. I just wanted to point out that today is kind of a, an important day for people not to forget their history, especially the way things are going in some countries, including the U.S. A little strange. So anyway, I do want to point out, as usual, there is chat available. It is available on YouTube. So if you're watching live, feel free to say hello. Today, I am going to be taking a very, very up-close look at Torg Eternity's Corebook, and it is from Ulisses North America. And I will talk a little bit about Ulisses North America after the news. Before I jump into, it's not an unboxing, but we are going to take a very close look at the Corebook. And I got a package yesterday that just blew my mind, and I'm going to share it with you. So that's what I've got on the agenda today. It is Thursday. So it is Thursday, April 12th. And on Thursdays, folks know that I like to kind of tackle role-playing games. And I will have plenty of stuff to be tackling over the next few weeks. I can tell you that for certain. So anyway, yes, chat is available through YouTube. And as I mentioned, if you want to say hello or if you want to get a closer look at something or you have a question when I'm going through the Torg Eternity book, by all means, chime in. It's not on screen because that's how I keep some of the goofballs at bay. So I do have some news today. Not a ton of news again. I swear it's like, don't companies just release games anymore? Do they have to all go on to Kickstarter? Because that is what seems like everything seems to be the past week or two as far as news. But I do have non-Kickstarter news today, so we can kind of move along and get started with that. Because get ready for the second edition of Gamelyn Games Tiny Epic Defenders, as well as an expansion which are arriving this summer, and I've got the dope. Ogmoor is in ruins. The evil cannot be contained, and its darkness has spread to every region of the world, shattering villages and infecting all forms of life. There has never been a more dire need for heroes. Everyone who remains must rise up, must unite, and must risk everything to preserve what little spirit remains. Tiny Epic Defenders is a riveting small box cooperative game, and it's back with an all-new edition featuring new art, new abilities, item meeples, and new rules, making for more exciting gameplay than ever before. So what's new? Revamped gameplay. Many rule changes, small and large, have taken place to rebalance and enrich the game, including new character powers, new powers for outer regions, and completely redesigned epic foes, along with many subtle changes to the setup and rules. All new art, completely redesigned to get in line with the current art direction of the Tiny Epic line. Item meeples. Items have been redesigned to be permanent additions, and this is artistically represented with item meeples, first introduced in Tiny Epic Quest. You may have seen those in the Tiny Epic Zombies, which is arriving right about the same time as this is. I should point out, also arriving in August is the expansion Tiny Epic Defenders, The Dark War. And here's a little bit of information about that as well. And it is going to include some more heroes. I think the main thing with the Dark War is that it's going to be a campaign. So Tiny Epic Defenders, The Dark War, an expansion to Tiny Epic Defenders, is the latest installment in the Chronicles of Ogmoor. It introduces new heroic characters like the Lionkin Charioteer and the Birdfolk Shadow Walker. It also introduces new epic foes, new dire enemies, and new artifacts. But more importantly, it introduces new and exciting features that keep players making difficult choices from the edge of their seats. These new features include a campaign mode with enemy generals, skills that heroes can learn, advanced regions, and caravans. Tiny Epic Defenders 2nd Edition is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in about 30 to 60 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $25. The Dark Wars expansion will require the core game, obviously enough, to play, and will also carry an MSRP of $25. So I have to say, I have not, and people who catch the show all the time know that the only Tiny Epic game I have played is Tiny Epic Western, right back here. I keep it handy because a lot of times I toss it in the car, bring it over to Greg's house for Cameron and the kids and Greg, and because it's one of their favorite games they like to play. But it's the only Tiny Epic game I've played. So I am looking forward to maybe getting a peek at the new edition of Tiny Epic Defenders in the future, as well as the Dark War expansion. Both of those will arrive in stores on August 1st. Also important to point out that Tiny Epic Zombies is supposed to hit right about that same time. Maybe Gen Con is probably going to be my guess. So it is definitely going to be a Tiny Epic August. That is for sure. Now, the fine folks over at Alderac Entertainment Group is going to be launching a brand new game called Space Base. And I swear, I just want to say Space Base! Kind of like Space Ghost. Anyway, it is coming on April 25th, and I've got the dope. In Space Base, players assume the roles of commodores of a small fleet of ships. Do you have to do some singing? Are you the singing commodores? Let me grab a sip here. I just find it interesting that for a science fiction game, they're actually using the term, the rank of Commodore. I think that's kind of cool. Ships begin docked at their stations and then deployed to sectors as new ships are commissioned under your command. Use cargo vessels to engage in trade and commerce, mining vessels to build recurring base income, and carriers to spread your influence. Establish new colonies for a new Commodore in a sector to gain even more influence. Gain enough influence and you can be promoted to Admiral. Space Base is a quick-to-learn, quick-to-play dice game using the core I roll, everyone gets stuff mechanism seen in other games. It's also a strategic engine builder using a player board, your space base, and tableaus of ship cards that you can buy and add to your board. The cards you buy in the order you buy them in have interesting implications on your engine beyond the ability on the card you buy, making for a different type of engine construction than seen in similar games. Players can take their engine in a number of directions: long odds and explosive gains, low luck and steady income, big endgame combos to launch from last to first, or a mix and match approach. Ultimately, Space Base is a game that you can just start playing and teach everyone how to play in the first round or two, and has a satisfying blend of dice chucking luck and challenging strategic choices. The game includes a dice game where players build their own chart of rewards. Fantastic artwork by Chris Walton set in a hopeful and humorous world. Easily taught rules with rich depth of play, and all players are engaged on every turn and every roll of the dice. Space Base is for 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and plays in around 30 to 75 minutes. It'll carry an MSRP of $39.99 when it hits stores later this month. Interesting. And this is a John D. Clare design. And if you are familiar with John D. Clare and AEG, you already know he's the designer of Mythic Vale. Excuse me, so this is something completely different, but seems pretty cool. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't know if I'm gonna see this, because usually with AEG, I'll get stuff a little before it starts arriving in stores. So for an example, I have been messing around a little bit with Thunderstone Quest, which of course I did an unboxing of, or I should say like uncubing of, because the thing is huge. So I don't know if we'll get to see this, but it does seem kind of neat. I kind of dig the vibe that it's giving. All right, as I mentioned, it's Thursday, so I like to talk about RPGs on Thursdays, and I like to save everybody money on games. Doesn't matter if it's an RPG or not. So I do want to point out that if you'd like to check out Deadlands Reloaded for Savage Worlds, but don't know where to start, I've got you covered, because it is one of the latest bundles of holding from, you got it, Bundle of Holding. And of course, you can save plenty of dough on some PDFs, and I've got the dope. Howdy, amigo. The Rail Barons have delivered 2 new offers featuring Deadlands Reloaded, Pinnacle Entertainment's update of its classic Weird West tabletop role-playing game, Deadlands for the Savage World system. This first offer, the Deadlands Reloaded bundle, gives you the core rulebooks and everything you need for historical fantasy horror adventures on the monster-haunted frontier of the 1880s. If you're new to Deadlands, you'll definitely want to start here. For just $12.95, you get the offer's Player Collection, which has a retail value of $44 in DRM-free PDFs and music tracks, and it includes the Compact Explorers edition of the Deadlands Reloaded Player's Guide, the Ghost Towns Location Sourcebook, the Grim Prairie Tunes soundtrack of atmospheric background music for your play sessions, and the complete Savage Worlds Deluxe Rulebook, plus the Map o' the Weird West and free Classic and Reloaded Conversion Guide. If you decide you want to pay more than the offer's threshold price of $22.67, you'll level up and also get the offer's entire Marshals collection, with 9 more titles worth an additional $55, including the Marshals Handbook, the Explorer's Edition, the Monster Manual, which is the Grim Prairie Trails, Trail Guides Volume 1, the Blood Drive Adventure Trilogy, and the Adventure Collection, All the Purty Little Horses. Also, they've added the Art O' the Weird West, a beautiful full-color collection, including art for the Deadlands 20th Anniversary Edition, and the GM screen inserts, which include reference charts for use with any landscape Game Master screen. After you've rounded up this Deadlands Reloaded offer, mosey on over to get the Deadlands Servitors Bundle, which is now offered with 4 big plot point campaigns against the Reckoner's deadliest servants. Keep in mind, 10% of each payment after gateway fees will go to a very worthy charity, and the charity designated by Deadlands designer Shane Lacey Hensley is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So, if you have never checked out Deadlands Reloaded, and Deadlands was really big when it first launched years and years ago. I remember having a lot of the Deadlands stuff, and it kind of collapsed under its own weight, which I'm going to be talking about Torg in a bit, which sort of suffered the same fate originally. But thankfully, Pinnacle Entertainment revamped the game for the generic system Savage Worlds, and it is pretty cool. I have taken a peek at kind of the player's guide and the Marshal's Handbook, which is sort of the GM's guide. Pretty cool stuff. I've checked out the PDFs previously. So this is a really cool way to get into Deadlands Reloaded without spending an arm and a leg. Also, moving right along, gonna save you more money as well. If you're craving some additional 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons action, but you've pretty much run through all of the official Wizards of the Coast releases, well, you're in luck, because a Fistful of Coppers is available through the Dungeon Masters Guild, and it's chock full of 5e goodness. And here's the dope. Welcome to a Fistful of Coppers, and Silvers, and Electrums, and a constellation of DM's Guild stars have joined forces to bring you a collection of some of the Guild's best-selling products. In this veritable bag of holding for bestsellers, you'll find a huge variety of content in more than 24 different products, ranging from powerful magic items to incredibly useful DM aids to unique player options to exciting adventures. And you're certain to find awesome stuff because each and every one is a highly rated medal winner. It includes more than 800 pages of the most popular content on the Guild, dozens of hours of entertainment of the highest possible quality, all for more than 66% off the cover price. If you bought each of these products individually, you'd pay well over $60. Right now, you can score this entire cornucopia of 5th edition goodness for $19.99 at the Dungeon Masters Guild. And of course, as I point out with any website that's related to Drive-Thru-RPG, which the DM's Guild is, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com before you go, because if you click on one of our banners for Drive-Thru, then we'll get a small portion of your purchase if you happen to make a purchase. And I gotta be honest, I keep saying it, it goes a long way to keeping us around. Because most months, just what we pull in from Drive-Thru-RPG actually will pay for the hosting for thegaminggang.com, which of course keeps the Daily Dope around as well. Alrighty, so there you have it. That is the news for today. So I do want to mention, I'm sure most of you watching usually catch the show. You probably already knew that there was no show yesterday because my best friend Elliot Miller's father had passed away. So of course there were some services in that for Elliot's dad, and it was like, you know, like all things like that, like when that happens, it's really sad, very upsetting. It was really wild, though, to see members of Elliot's family that I had not seen in about 30 years. That was pretty wild. Fortunately, we were getting together for a sad occasion. So, but anyway, so I get home yesterday. Well, before I get into that, let's talk about what's coming up on the show. So, I already mentioned we're going to take a look at Torg Eternity in just a couple of minutes. On tomorrow's show, which is Family Fun Friday, I am going to take a look at Trailhead, the wilderness survival game, which is from Two Moles. And this is going to be coming to Kickstarter shortly. So we're going to take a look at this because it looks pretty interesting in a pretty cool tin. So that's what I'll be doing. Then next week, I've got some stuff already lined up. So on Monday, I'm going to review Shards of Infinity, the new deck building game from Ultra Pro Entertainment and Stoneblade Entertainment. So I know there are quite a few people out there who are curious if this is any good, because it's from the designers of Ascension, which is a very popular deck building game that's been around for quite some time. Then on Tuesday, sticking with cards, on Tuesday I'll be reviewing the Northern Territory, the expansion for Grimslingers from Greenbrier Games. This is a pretty hefty box too. There's a lot of stuff in here, and pretty good revamp of the original game. Some new wrinkles. I'm not going to give anything away. Then on Wednesday, yes, Wargame Wednesday will return. I will be reviewing, as you hear stuff falling around inside the box, I'll be doing a review of At Any Cost Mets 1870, designed by my good buddy Herman Luttman and released by the fine folks over at GMT Games. So that's giving you an idea of what's on the horizon. I think next Thursday we're probably going to be looking at another Ulisses North America role-playing game, and you'll see why in a second. So anyway, so as I mentioned, so I was coming home yesterday, got home, and it was about 6 o'clock. And I knew there was a package coming from Ulisses North America because I had done an interview with Ian Starcher and Eric Simon at C2E2 on Sunday, and on Tuesday's show, I shared the interview. Really fun interview, and learned a lot about Torg Eternity and the Dark Eye. And for those of you out there who are really looking forward to the new Warhammer 40K role-playing game, Wrath and Glory, talk about that as well. So Ian Starcher wanted to get some Ulisses North America products in my hands. So I'm thinking, okay, it's probably going to send me the core book for Torg and maybe the core book for the Dark Eye, right? So I'm like, cool, that's pretty sweet. So anyway, so I'm pulling up yesterday, and there is this big box, pretty damn big box, sitting in front of my door. And I'm like, holy cow. So it weighed 20 some pounds. So I pick it up, bring it inside, I crack it open, and I'm going to share what was in this box because it's mind blowing. And it really shows that the folks who are operating Ulisses North America are pretty darn cool. Right, so as you can see, I've got the Torg Eternity core rulebook, right? So, okay. So then I also got the Torg Eternity dice set. So there's a couple of 20-sided dice and 2 6-siders. And they have a really cool kind of design. It's kind of out of focus when I zoomed in on it. So this was in there. Just wait. This is going to blow your minds, folks. Then we've got the probability tokens. So these are kind of like poker chips to be used with Torg. Then there's the Torg soundtrack, Torg Eternity soundtrack. So that was in this. All right, I'm gonna end up stacking all this stuff all over the place. So then I've got Torg Eternity Day One Adventures of hardcover. It's a hardcover book here. So these are the adventures that you can run, the Game Master can run to introduce the players to Torg and it's a variety of the different cosms that are invading. So, got that. Then there is the, wait, I'm going to move this, because I don't want all of a sudden everything to just go falling, go tumbling. Then I've got the Torg Eternity Delphi missions. So there are 12 adventures in this. So I've got this. And then there's also the character journal pack for Torg. So effectively, now there is a drama deck. And it is an integral part of Torg Eternity. And I noticed that wasn't in the box. And for some strange reason, I could have swore that Ian had mentioned it was sold out. That was kind of like off camera. Now, I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong. But I kind of thought that it might be sold out. Not sure. Then I've got, okay, moving right along. So I've got the quick start rules for the Dark Eye, which I believe was probably released for free RPG day, is going to be my guess. Then I got a Torg Eternity poster. So I thought that was kind of cool. So here, right here, you see, whoops, this is that drama deck I was talking about. So now I had touched base with Eric Simon, and Eric said, "Oh, I'll make sure I get one out to you, because without the deck, it's going to be pretty difficult to review the game itself." All right, so then there's kind of, it looks like this is a peek. I didn't really look through it. But for Wrath and Glory, the Warhammer 40K role-playing game, which my understanding is this is going to be 8th edition, because 8th edition had some really big changes to the 40K universe for Games Workshop. And I believe this incorporates a lot of those changes. All right, so then I've got the kind of digest size core book for the Dark Eye. So this is a soft cover, but still really, really nice. Just, I'm not even close to being done. Just wait. So then I got a pack of character sheets for the Dark Eye, and I think these character sheets might have like a little adventure in it, or I think there's something like some extra goodies. I think there's some extra goodies in these character packs, because as I showed you, I had the character pack for Torg Eternity as well. And then I guess the Dark Eye uses some decks of cards too. So I've got combat and social and special abilities. Social abilities? No. Combat and special abilities, Jeff. Got that. I've got spells and rituals. It looks like each of these contains about 110 cards thereabout. Then I've got advantages and disadvantages. Sorry about the glare, it's picking up a little bit. And then I've got liturgies and ceremonies, which is just kind of a single deck here. So I got all these decks. And then I've got the Aventura, I believe that's the pronunciation. That's kind of the game world, right? So I got the Almanac. I got the Bestiary. Now these are hardcovers here. So I got the Bestiaries. Then I got the GM screen. So this is the Game Master screen. And once again, I think there's some other stuff in here than just the Game Master screen. It might be an adventure, because it looks like there's kind of a little bit of a book in it. I haven't cracked all this stuff open because I want to crack this stuff open and share it with you, with the viewers. Because I think that would be pretty cool. They explore this stuff together. And then I've got Tales of Dragons and Thieves, which is an adventure booklet. There are 3 adventures in this, and they are perfect for starting characters to the Dark Eye. Then I've got the map box. It's an Aventura map set. So inside this box are a bunch of maps, and it appears that This is kind of light. Appears this is probably a pretty cool box to kind of carry some of your books and that for the Dark Eye with you. And then, finally, there is the Aventura Adventure card game. So I got this as well. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, this is just it was mind-blowing to open up this box. And I swear, I'm not sharing this so I can be like, oh, look at the things that I get that you didn't get. No, I'm just saying, wow, these guys are awesome. They're amazing to send me all of this stuff. Because most companies that want me to do reviews of the role-playing games, they only want to send along PDFs, which I'm happy with. That's cool. Just don't make for really exciting video, right? I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen some of my RPG reviews where I had to use, images pulled from PDFs. It's kind of like watching the news as I talk, having some slides of images going past. So pretty cool. And I might bust this open on Friday next week, a week from tomorrow. Check this out, because this is a standalone adventure card game. So that is cool. So as I mentioned, loads and loads of really super cool stuff. So as far as I can tell, it appears that I was sent everything that Ulysses. Damn, I need a sip. I need a sip here. I swear it gets so dry down here, and it doesn't matter if it's cold or warm or what. I finally warmed up a little bit in the Chicago area. We're about 70 degrees today, and we're gonna get cold again. Anyway, so I was gonna say, it appears as if I was sent everything that Ulisses North America makes at the moment, minus the drama deck for Torg. And I think like a couple of posters that were in the big cargo box for Torg Eternity. So I thought, wow, that is just mind-blowing. So we are going to have loads and loads of stuff to be looking at over the next few weeks from the Dark Eye and Torg Eternity. So pretty cool. And of course, I've got some other RPG stuff I'm gonna mix in, because I don't want to have to change the name of the show to the Ulisses North America Hour, because all the stuff they sent. But anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at Torg Eternity. And I'll be the first to admit, I do not know tons about Torg, the original role-playing game. So, but I do want to point out that Torg Eternity core rules, as mentioned before, are from Ulisses North America, which, if you didn't watch my interview with Ian and Eric, is actually the North American division of Ulisses Spiel. Torg Eternity is written by Shane Lacey Hensley. Hey, we were just talking about Shane a moment ago. Daryl Hayhurst, Marcus Plotz. I don't think I got Marcus's last name correct, but Marcus is actually the bigwig at Ulisses Spiel. I believe he's the owner. Dean Gilbert and Ross Watson. Art is provided by Chris Bivens, Matthias Kalza, Dennis Darmody, Talon Dunning, Bien Flores, Gunship Revolution. That's an odd name for a person. Wink, wink. Elida Saxon and Andy Trebold. It is a 280-page core book. It's available in hardcover for an MSRP of $49.99. It's also available in PDF through our friends over at Drive-Thru RPG for $24.99. All right, so let's pop on over to the other camera and let's start taking a peek at Torg Eternity. And as you can see, this is shrink wrapped. Caught it a little bit, so no big deal there. So let's get the shrink off of this. And one of the things that I noticed during the interview I did on Sunday with Ian and Eric from Ulisses North America was the books are just really nicely put together and presented. Pretty awesome. And I can tell you right now, you're not gonna get the full effect of the cover here, but it's pretty cool because it's sort of gloss. The character's kind of glossy. So is Torg Eternity, and then the rest is kind of a matte finish. So kind of it pops. It really pops very nicely. And we got the back here. The storm has a name. And then we're gonna crack this on open, and I can tell you right now, just by kind of taking a peek at the first few pages, that the page stock, the page weight, I guess we would say, really, really nice. Really, really nicely done. And let me pop in here, because this is something that I had noticed when I was seeing a lot of the different game books. Is the game books include a couple of bookmarks. That is pretty darn cool, because especially as a game master, you're trying to remember a certain thing. Very, very nicely done. Of course, in a PDF, you could kind of jump to it, but physical book, you can't. So I thought that was very, very nice as far as the kind of little extra. And as Ian Starcher had pointed out to me, he said that all of the Ulisses North America books are printed to the European standards of Ulysses Spiel. So you'll find that these game books are a little bit higher quality than what you'll see from some other publishers in the US, but there's no additional cost. So as I mentioned before, the physical hardcover is $49.99. That's the MSRP on it. And that's a pretty darn fair price for a 280-page core book. Especially the quality of, I can tell, the binding, the paper, everything. And we're going to take a look through this. Is very, very cool. So I have to point out, I am, as I started to mention, I am not the most well-versed person when it comes to Torg. And I'll tell you what I recall about the original game. And it came out in, I want to say about 1990 originally. And it was released by West End Games. And West End Games did some phenomenal role-playing games back in the day. They're probably best known for the Star Wars D6 role-playing game, which was stunning. It was awesome. In fact, some folks don't realize that. Of course, now I understand none of the, I shouldn't say none, because, oh gosh, what the hell's the villain's name? The Admiral. Oh, he's, gosh, I'm coming up complete blank. Thrawn, Admiral Thrawn, is part of official Star Wars continuity. But a lot of the stuff from all those different authors over decades, that when they were writing all these Star Wars novels, you know, that's no longer canon. That's why I think they call it Star Wars Legends or something like that. But a lot of folks don't realize that the West End Games Star Wars role-playing game and all the supplements were actually utilized by all these authors for their Star Wars stuff, because it was all like official. Of course, at that time, before we got the newest trilogy. So I'm sure a lot of people remember West End Games for Star Wars. And they also, I swear they did Paranoia, which was also, it was a pretty well-received, very bizarre kind of RPG. It was pretty cool. I had the books, never ran it. I just could never wrap my head around how I would run the various clones in that. But Torg came out in 1990, and about the same time, Rifts from Palladium Books came out. And a lot of folks kind of think that Torg and Rifts were sort of kind of the same thing, when in reality, they weren't. So here's kind of the background of Torg. So Torg takes place on Earth, right? So it takes place on Earth, but it doesn't take place kind of like on our Earth. It's kind of like a core Earth. So if you're a comic book fan, you probably are familiar with various, especially if you read DC. DC has all these kind of different universes, like, you know, Earth 2, stuff like that. So it's supposed to take place on an Earth kind of like that. Very, very similar to our own Earth, but a little more magic, a little more kind of science fiction-y than our own Earth. More kind of like super-powered heroes, stuff like that. So what happens in Torg are these different realities, these different universes invade Earth, and these universes are called cosms. And what it really sort of is Torg. Now, of course, we're looking at Torg Eternity, but the original Torg, the name was actually evolved from what they called the game in-house at West End Games. It was called Torg. It was the other role-playing game. And then as time went by and they were getting ready to release the game, they kept trying to think of new names for it, and they just couldn't think of anything as good as Torg. So anyway, so you'll have these various different cosms invading Earth. And for an example, I believe this is supposed to be the Gaunt Man, who is kind of the overall main villain, because each of these cosms are ruled by a High Lord. And one of the ways what Torg sort of was kind of almost like a generic system that people could play, and you could play any sort of genre of game that you wanted. So for an example, if you wanted a high fantasy sort of role-playing game, you could do that. If you wanted kind of a cyberpunk futuristic game, you could play that. If you wanted a game that was like, you know, a throwback to Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Lost World, with dinosaurs and things like that, you could do that. But the thing was, it wasn't just a generic system. It was your heroes could play in all of these different genres. And it was just really, really revolutionary for its time, because Torg didn't set off to simply be just some sort of generic system. It wasn't set up to be a GURPS kind of game like Steve Jackson Games. It wasn't set up to be a basic role-playing like Chaosium. So as we take a look through here, we've got the cosms. So it's going to talk about the various different universes, different realities that are invading. And then we've got a map here showing who's where. And I think, I'm not sure if this is a day 1 map or like a day 90 map, but let's lift this up a little bit so you get kind of a closer look. So for an example, the United States, both coasts, and actually you can't see it too well, but this little kind of point here is actually Chicago. So both coasts and up through kind of through like Pennsylvania and into Illinois, into Chicago, into kind of the Great Lakes, is all the Lost Land. And the Lost Land is kind of that throwback to Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Lost World, sort of savagery, primitive, whereas then you'll have like the UK, parts of the UK and other parts of Europe are, I believe it's pronounced Isle. It's the Isle Cosm, and it's all like fantasy. It's like it's kind of like a fantasy RPG would be, with magic and elves and dwarves and you know, monsters like giants and trolls. So very, very cool stuff. So one thing that you take a peek at too is it's going to show you, I believe they're called axioms for each of the cosms. So we'll have magic, social, spirit, and tech. So the one of the cool things about Torg, and of course Torg Eternity, is that when these universes, these realities kind of invade, they change our own Earth, right? So like the living land is all, technology doesn't work anymore. It's all kind of rusted apart, falling apart. It's all overgrown by huge, almost like monstrous vegetation, and there's dinosaurs, and it's all really, really cool stuff. So it'll show you these axioms, and then each of these worlds will kind of have a law, maybe a couple of laws that are like sort of what kind of rules that world, right? So for an example, like the living land is the law of savagery, right? Because like the social order, the social axiom is going to be really low. So people only band together in tribes. There aren't any like higher concepts of like government or governmental representation and things like that. So anyway, so we're seeing the core Earth here. Talking about the world at war, the Delphi Council. Got some pretty cool artwork. I like the art. Now, I took a little bit of a peek at a few of the pages of the PDF because Eric at Ulisses North America was kind enough to send me some PDFs, so I was kind of taking a little bit of a peek at the core book for Torg. That's why I know a little more about it than just, well, this is what I found on Wikipedia. So it's talking about, this is still core Earth here, talking about the world laws, right? So one of the world laws for core Earth is the law of hope. There's the law of glory, the law of the underdog. Now, one thing I did notice when I was kind of peeking through, because I've gotten about 50 pages through the PDF. It's a lot of the world building, a lot of the background is included up front in this core book, as opposed to, oh, here are the rules of the game, here's how you create characters, so on and so forth. It's kind of getting into kind of getting your juices flowing for this game. So here we have, like I said, I think it's pronounced Isle, not positive. I'm sure someone out there is going to catch this video and they're going to know way more about Torg than I possibly ever could. And they're going to point out, no, Jeff, it's pronounced blah, blah, blah. So we've got this. Now it's showing us where is that invasion taking place. Talking about the world laws. So for an example, world laws for Isle, the law of magic, the law of light and darkness, the law of enchantment. Then we've got the cyber papacy. Now, I do think the cyber papacy was kind of a point of contention for people back in the 90s, back when Torg originally came out through West End Games, because there's a cyber pope. And the cyber pope's kind of a villain. So a lot of people were like, oh, well, this game's anti-Catholic. There were some aspects, I believe, to the, I want to say in this it's called Pan-Pacifica, but I think in the original Torg it was, I think like Nippon Tech or something like that. Kept kind of like some stereotypes to it, and people were like, well, it's kind of anti-Japanese. So, although strangely enough, a lot of your heroes were actually like Japanese or Catholics and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know how Ulisses North America is going to approach kind of some of the controversy that the original Torg had. So anyway, so we've got the cyber papacy, talking about cyberware. Now this is kind of a setting with a lot of kind of cyberpunkish flavor to it. Talking about the world laws here, the law of the one true way, the law of heretical magic, the law of suspicion. So then we've got the living land, right? So that's what I was talking about a little bit before. In the U.S., it's supposed to be both coasts, as well as like the Chicago area. And see here, magic is 1. So the lower these axioms are, the more difficult it is for these things to take place, right? So social is 7. Like I mentioned before, the social structure of this cosm is tribal. It's not really higher than tribal. It's, you follow the strongest. Spirit, which is kind of miracles, things like that. And then tech is 6. So right now, currently, there is a Kickstarter going on, and I think it's about 800% funded at this moment, and it's for the living land. So it's for all the living land goodies. So it talks about the clans, because there's like these lizard people who are kind of the big baddies for the living land. Now it's taking a closer look of, see, here's the area here. Talking about the world laws, right? See, so I said law of savagery, the law of life, the law of wonders. I was looking through this last night, and I think I got just past the Nile Empire when I was taking a peek at the PDF, and I gotta be honest, I was like, I really want to run this. I really want to throw some, like, my nephew and Elliot and maybe even my brother into this, because I think it'd be really wild. And I have a habit of like going like way over the top sometimes on some games. And I think I would have a blast running this. So we've got the Nile Empire, which is sort of kind of like a horror, kind of like a gothic horror setting. Oh no, I'm sorry. The Nile Empire is kind of like a 1930s pulp setting with like Egypt. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, all right. Then we have Aurorsh, which, if you look, it's an anagram for horrors, I guess. Yeah, because there's an S in there, it would have to be horrors. This is the one that's kind of like the gothic horror. And this is like the realm of the Gaunt Man. So, one of the things about the original Torg was that it had a real meta presentation to the game. So, and I highly doubt it's something that we're going to see Ulisses North America delve too deeply into. Oh, I'm sure they've got stuff plotted out. But with West End Games, they actually had, and it kind of, for about the first year, it was coming out, and they had this thing. It's called the Infiniverse, where it was almost like a living campaign for Torg. And people would actually write in and say, hey, this is what's going on with our group. This is how our group handled whatever adventure. And the folks at West End would actually incorporate that into the storyline for the next adventures. Very, very cool in theory, but keep in mind, we're talking early 1990s. You didn't have a whole lot of the interwebs out there. It existed, but and if I remember correctly, I don't think West End Games embraced the internet whatsoever with Torg. But so this is the Gaunt Man. So we've got the world laws here: law of eternal corruption, law of fear, law of perseverance. Then we've got the Pan Pacifica, which, as I mentioned before, I believe had been kind of like I think this was kind of a cyberpunk setting too, but now it's kind of almost like zombie apocalypse-ish. But with big mega corporations and stuff. This is as far as I really got when I was reading through the PDF. But as I mentioned, I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, man, this is looking really cool. This is looking really good. And that is the first thing. Now, of course, obviously this is not a review, but one of the first things I always look at when I do review a role-playing game product is, would I want to run this? That's number one, because if I wouldn't, it's sort of like, no, I can't give a thumbs up on this if I personally can't imagine running the game or adventure or what have you. So Tharcold, I want to say, is kind of like these demons, and I believe they're in Russia. So we've got that. So we've got the world laws. Here's the law of domination, law of ferocity, and the law of pain. Okay, now we get to the Storm Knights, and the Storm Knights are the heroes. So these are the player characters. And what sets the Storm Knights apart from other people on Earth is the Storm Knights can actually warp reality. So as an example, one of the reasons why these cosms invading the Earth are actually being successful is because they warp the reality of the world. So for an example, like I was talking about the living land. So it warps the reality where technology doesn't work anymore. Weapons don't work anymore. Cars are all rusted out, falling apart. People, as I mentioned before, it's all tribal. It's all, kind of like, we follow the strongest around, not the most intelligent or the person who's going to have the best chance of leading us to salvation or safety or whatever. It's the strongest. So what happens is the Storm Knights actually have the ability to kind of fight off these reality warping effects of these different cosms. So a Storm Knight might be able to utilize an M16 in the living land, or they might be able to utilize magic in the living land. So one of the things I understand from the original Torg that has kind of been tweaked in this core book is in the original game, you didn't have a lot of options as far as in your character creation. I believe you were kind of stuck on kind of like archetypes, and there weren't a ton of them. Now, of course, as more material came out for the game, you had a lot more options as far as creating your Storm Knight. But in the beginning, you really didn't. So I believe that's something that was addressed in Torg Eternity. So it's talking about possibilities. Yes, there's possibility energy. That's why these cosms have invaded the Earth. They want our possibility energy. So we're talking about some character advancement, giving us some examples of different characters. Now, the Storm Knights don't all have to necessarily be human. They can actually be from these invading cosms, and they're members of those races that are actually looking to fight against their own people. So we've got, like, here we got dwarves. I believe it's pronounced the Indinos, and those are the lizard people from the living land. Talking about, we've got elves. Looks like we're into some skills here. Talking about different skills. Perks. Looks like various perks depending on kind of like, maybe there are some archetypes in here. Leadership, high powers, light powers. And it's kind of talking about what cosm that these perks would be represented. Now, one thing I have kind of heard through the grapevine is that Torg Eternity needs some tweaks to its character advancement. So I don't know. I haven't gotten that far, so I can't really say. But like I said, artwork's really nice. Pulp sorcery. Some of the things that I had heard about the original Torg, and I should point out that Ulisses Spiel and Ulisses North America actually have released tons of the original Torg materials on Drive-Thru RPG. Of course, there have been tweaks, there have been changes to the story, and supposedly this is a different Earth in Torg Eternity than was in Torg. So although some things are similar, there are going to be things that are going to be very, very different. So that's my understanding, because one of the things right now that I can see just looking through the book, and the book, like I said, the book is really cool. I've been enjoying reading through it. Is that, you're going to be pumped to start running this or start playing it, but there aren't a lot of materials out there right now for it. So you've got the core book, and as we were looking, we've got these different cosms, but there's only a few pages devoted to each of the cosms. So people are going to really be like, wow, I really want to jump in this, but there isn't a whole lot out there yet. And I do understand that Ulisses North America has about 3 years of releases, all game planned out. It's just, you're getting in on kind of the ground floor right now, because this came out pretty recently. I want to say, I think it's within the last 6 months, Torg Eternity came out. So, just looking through some of the savagery perks. So, for an example, there's Living Land again. And we got the perk list. Boy, somebody must be a Yankees fan. Although I believe this is supposed to be an NPC who people aren't real sure, because he's kind of leading the resistance against these cosms, and people aren't sure if he's really from our own Earth or not. So I really dig the backstory that I've been checking out. So now we got the rules, and I believe this is something that I don't have. I don't have the drama deck. I don't have any of the decks. So I understand that a lot of the action is driven by cards from the drama deck. Now, of course, I already showed you we've got the Torg dice. So we've got 6-sided dice and 20-sided dice. And I do believe that for success or failure, it does use an exploding die mechanic. So you're rolling a 20-sided die. You're looking to beat a specific difficulty number, and what you're doing is you're rolling the 20-sider, and if you roll a 10 or a 20, you actually get to roll the die again and add that to your original result. And if, of course, you get another 10 or a 20, you get to roll again. So there's that exploding dice mechanic. But I kind of understand that you kind of roll your dice, and then you check out this chart, and then add bonuses to that. You don't necessarily add bonuses to the die rolls. Like I said, I do not know for certain. I do understand that from the original game, that Ulisses North America has really expanded upon the drama deck and how it's involved in the game, and has provided a lot more options for it. Once again, I don't know much about the actual core mechanics of Torg. That's why I've been reading the PDF. So, anyway, so we've got conflict line, destiny cards. See, these are what some of these cards will look like. And I do understand that depending on the cosm, you'll have different... Oh, here we go, right there, cosm cards. You're going to have different cards that you would utilize depending on the cosm. So we've got actions, damage, but utilizing the deck of cards is supposed to provide a really cinematic feel to the action, and that your characters can really perform superhuman feats. That's why they're Storm Knights. That's why they have the ability to kind of resist these changes to reality. So, just kind of flipping on through here. Action and combat options summary, an extended example. Dramatic skill resolution. Now, earlier I was, we got some vehicles. Earlier I was kind of talking about how Torg, the original Torg, kind of fell apart under its own weight. And when it originally came out, it kind of took the industry by storm. It was very, very unique, and West End Games really did support the game really well. But the problem started to become that there was no way that the core system, the original core game, because I think it was a box set, could support all the different cosms that were going on. Because they had some cosms that were originally in the game, then they added more to it. And so all of a sudden, depending on the cosm, you suddenly had all these different rules that you had to utilize depending on the cosm you were in. And some of the core rules just didn't work right. Then there was all this power creep that started to enter into the equation. So you had various different cosms that started out really cool, had really cool aspects to it, and unique like additions to your character, kind of like, like cybernetics and stuff like that. And then as other supplements came out, then suddenly all this other stuff was way more powerful, and so that's what I mean by the power creep. So that was a problem. Then I understand that at a certain point it got to where Western Games was kind of doing very humorous, kind of really humorous feel for the game. It wasn't deathly serious anymore, and I think people didn't dig that. And then they kind of ditched that and went back and said, no, you should play this game seriously. So I don't know. Like I said, the game kind of collapsed under its own weight. So that is something I'm very, very interested to see what Ulisses North America does with this, because of the fact that you've got all these different cosms, and all these different cosms, different things are going on. So you've got like the pulp action of the 1930s, and you've got like fantasy in the land of Isle, and then you've got the lack of technology and things like that, and living land, and then you've got the gothic horror and all these other things. I'm curious how well Ulisses North America is going to kind of keep it all composed into one system, where it doesn't start fracturing apart, where it's like, oh, well, if you want to be playing adventures in this cosm, now you got to learn all these different rules. So that was one of the drawbacks of the original game. Plus, one of the drawbacks was it was pretty pricey to start really getting into the original Torg, because if you wanted magic, then you had to buy the Isle book. If you wanted like cyberpunk and cybernetics and things like that, you had to buy, I think it was the Nippon Tech book. So if you wanted all these various different aspects of the game, you had to go buy all these source books. So I don't know. I don't know what Ulisses North America has planned. Okay, so just taking kind of a peek. So far, it kind of looks like they're trying to keep everything under a core system. And yes, of course, the different game books will bring more to the game. I don't know what they're going to do as far as like with magic and stuff like that. So we've got reality. There we go. Here's a section on magic. Talking about some of the spells. And of course, I would think when Ulisses North America decides they're going to bring an Isle product to, say, Kickstarter, that they're going to expand on all this. But it at least looks like we've got some aspects of magic being covered. Miracles, psionics, which was, I believe, an additional cosm that was added into the original Torg, which was kind of almost like a space opera-ish cosm. Excuse me. And then we've got the GM's guide. Aha, kind of cool. There's, like I said, there is just loads and loads of cool backstory to the game that I've seen so far. And it just seems really, really unique. Something very, very wild. And like I said, it's something that I really am looking forward to busting out at the table with my nephew and his friends, and seeing what they think. Because I started doing the kind of fantasy, my kit bashed game, my kit bashed fantasy game, and they really dug it. But the problem we're having right now is getting everybody back together so we can play it. And of course, that's the problem running any kind of role-playing game where you've got, like, say, more than one or two players and you're the GM, is being able to arrange where everybody's going to be at the table at the same time. Where this almost seems like I could possibly plug characters in, unplug characters, all these other different things. So so I might be able to get around that whole, well, we don't have everybody around the table for a game session tonight. So pretty cool, pretty cool. So we got all the stuff in the GM's guide talking about the different cosms. Kind of giving a little more detail about the cosms. Nice. Another aspect of this that I would think would be really cool to run for my gaming gang would be they're not familiar with Torg at all. They know nothing about it. They have absolutely no clue what this is. So I think that would be really wild to just throw them into the mix of this without them having any idea what's going on. So, which I've done over the years running role-playing games. I've set stuff up where people think they're going to play one thing and then pulled a fast one on them, and it turned out they were playing something completely different as a one-shot. So we're just looking at some characters and creatures, minions. I'm taking a guess at each of the Cosm releases will have plenty of info about various different creatures, kind of like a bestiary. And then we got the index. So all in all, 280 pages. So very, very cool. Very nice. I really like the quality of this book. I think it's kind of cool we've got these bookmarks too. And of course, I'm a person who digs PDFs as well. Because for me, PDFs are really, really easy to transport around. I have them on my iPad, and I just, bring my iPad, grab my dice, bring my iPad, bring my little notes that I've written up, and I'm all good to go. So, but there's also something about holding the physical book in your hands that is really, really cool as well. So I am going to have a review of Torg Eternity in the very near future. I would say probably a couple weeks. Probably a couple of weeks before I can get that taken care of. I got loads of stuff. Luckily, so far, I don't have things like backing up, so which is pretty nice. So I've got next week. I've got at least 2 reviews. Actually, I want to say 3 reviews. So yeah, just keeping things moving through the pipeline. So all right, as I mentioned, I will have I say about 2 weeks. I'm sure I'll be done reading it later on this week, probably over the weekend. It's just I can't really do anything with the game without that drama deck. So, all right, pretty long show today. So hopefully folks who wanted to get a better look at the Torg Eternity rulebook have now pretty much seen everything that's in that rulebook. So when you are not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow to take a look at Trailhead from Two Moles. So until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And as always, thank you so much for watching.